Welcome back to the Capes and Tights podcast right here on capesandtights.com. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg. Once again, this episode is brought to you by our friends over at Galactic Comics and Collectibles in Bangor, Maine. You can visit them at galacticcomicsandcollectibles.com. We welcome back Patrick Horvath, who is a filmmaker and comic book creator best known for his work on IDW Publishing's Eisner-nominated comic book series, Beneath the Trees, Where Nobody Sees, as well as the upcoming sequel, Volume 2, which is called Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, Rite of Spring, which the first issue drops today, July 9th, when this episode drops. But if you're listening to this in the future, still go to your LCS and pick up this issue because it's phenomenal. But yeah, this is Patrick Horvath returning. But before you listen, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, all those places. You can subscribe, rate, review over on Apple or Spotify or wherever you find your podcast. You can find us over on YouTube as well. And as always, you can find us at capesandtights.com. But this is Patrick Horvath talking Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees right here. Enjoy. Welcome back to the podcast, Patrick. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me back on.
Absolutely. I mean, you did well enough last time that we decided that we'd invite you back on. Is that how it is?
I appreciate it.
Greg from Dark Horse is just really hounding me to get you back on. That's what it is, right? Or not Dark Horse, sorry, IDW. He's gonna hate me for that one, but yeah, IDW. I was just doing a Dark Horse thing, and that's what's in my mind, Dark Horse. But you know what? They're all comic book publishers. People work in different places and things like that. But Greg from IDW,
for sure.
Wanted you back on. No, I wanted you back on. I had a fun time last time. I had a very exciting time reading Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, Rite of Spring. Cool. So I decided that, let's get back on and talk with Patrick about this. And I mentioned right before we started recording, it's here, as of basically today, this episode, it's right around the time we're releasing this episode is when the issue is dropping. And so people will be able to go to their local comic book shop and buy this series. Even if they haven't and they haven't read the other one, they can buy the trade of the first volume and get caught up on this because you're going to need to. This is not like a separate thing. You kind of need to know what's going on, right? To get what's going on in Rite of Spring. You need to know the first
series. You're definitely robbing yourself of a lot of fun if you don't catch up on that first trade.
In general, just not just related to Rite of Spring, but just in general, you're missing out on a lot of fun.
Sure, yeah.
Reading the first series, but yeah, no, it's true. It was a highly acclaimed first series. People loved it. Eisner, attention and all that stuff. So it was a very popular first series. Is this second series something that you had like in the back of your mind, ready to go if this were to go, or was this like I needed a mad scramble to get something going because I wanted to write a second series?
No, it was in my head since like issue 1 of the very first Beneath the Trees. When I finished up that issue, I had thought of I was realizing like there was going to be a lot that I was going to be leaving on the table in regards to more story that I could tell. And so I already had my mind thinking about like what that could be. Also, too, I was, looking for something like that because I wanted to leave that first volume. Like, I didn't know if it was going to be more than that. So I wanted to wrap it up enough that it felt satisfying, but I also wanted to leave it open for the possibility to do more. And in case we got lucky. And then also was thinking of like what would that be. So by the time I did so like issue 1, my gears were turning. By issue 3 I had which issue 3 focuses on the life of like Melody the Butcher and then her dealing with the grief of her dead husband, and then also that issue ends at the funeral for Martin the Goat, who there's big spoilers here if you haven't read volume 1, but anyway, and so it was one of those issues where I was like, the storyline and the idea of like I really wanted to show the impact that violence had, right? And so in regards to specifically the story, you're watching a community deal with a funeral for this community member who is violently murdered in the beginning. So, and Samantha's keying in on the idea of like, she doesn't really understand she understands like intellectually what they're going through, but she has no idea what that really feels like.
Hmm.
She's completely void of like emotion for her brain's just not wired.
Yeah.
She like totally understands like she can't feel that, but she
Yeah.
knows that what she does is like the same or maybe even worse, arguably, because like that's all like death in absentia. Like nobody's found. Like none of her victims are really found. So it's arguably even worse to just not know and
Mhm.
to not even have that closure. And so I was 100% just starting to like really dig in on that concept. And that's pretty much what the seed was for Rite of Spring. So by the time issue one came out for that, it was around like I think I was in the middle of issue four,
Yeah.
and like I was drawing issue four when issue one came out. IDW was like, well, issue one's doing very well. Are you interested at all in doing more? And I was already like, yes. And this is what I'm thinking. And so it sort of had been just organically kind of rolling around in my head. And I was ready to, to go with it for sure.
Mhm. It was this you've obviously been writing it and illustrating it and getting it ready to go over the past year or so. Was it waited? Do we wait till IDW Dark? Was this like a plan for them to have this part of that new part of IDW, or is this just happenstance that it ended up coinciding with with that?
It was part of IDW Dark. I mean, we had thought about doing it before I'd heard anything about IDW
Okay,
Dark, but
okay,
like by the time we were getting ready to like start putting together the actual like story arc and everything, they were like, we want it to be one of the books for this new imprint we're doing. We think it'd be a really great fit, and that made all the sense to me. So that was cool. It just kind of worked out well. I mean, maybe they had plans for it way before, but to me, it was presented after we had already
yeah.
started thinking about it. And then it just made sense to me. So it just worked out pretty well. But I don't know that I mean it's just it felt like it had like a nice home now,
Yeah.
basically.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. I think that's true, and I think one of the things you, as a publisher, they want to have some tentpole things to launch something like an imprint with something that's already successful. And I think that obviously with some of the
Sure.
other intellectual properties they have, releasing with this IDW Dark, this adds this whole other side of it. It's funny though because I liked Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees so much, the first series, that I was so excited to hear about this sequel series. And the weird part is I remember exactly where I was when I read the press release coming from IDW, because he's fine, but in a moment my son was really sick and he was in the hospital,
Oh,
and
geez.
he was sleeping in his hospital bed. He was there
Mm.
for 24 hours or whatever it was.
Oh my gosh.
But it was he's fine, but I was sitting there and he's sleeping, and I'm just there with him, and I open my laptop up and I get that email and I got like excited. It's the weirdest thing sometimes where like where you are is like it has nothing to do with
Yeah.
it. It was not, but it was the fact that I now remember exactly where I was when I heard this
Oh
was
wow.
coming. And so I chomping at the bit, chomping at the bit to want to see more. And I didn't know, and this is no offense to you, but I didn't know how
Mm.
you were going to do this. Like I didn't know how this was possible to do more like this, because I mean part of it
Sure.
is the juxtaposition of the type of illustration you're doing and the characters you're creating in a horror story. You know what I mean? So it's like this idea
Hmm.
that like if my son, speaking of my son, picked this up, which actually he did when I got the trade from Greg. Greg sent me the trade as a thank you from IDW, and he picked it up. He's like, "Is this for me?" I go, "Well, in a couple of years. Like, what's these for?"
Yeah.
I'm like, in a couple of
No.
years, we'll sit
Like,
down and read this together when the
sure.
time is ready for you to do this. No,
Right.
um, but I was thinking to myself, I'm like, that's part of the allure to the original series was the fact that
For
you look
sure.
at this cover and people are like, "What the hell?" And then they read it and they're like, "Holy crap, this is amazing!" And so like seeing how to do that again, like to be like, you can't grab those additional fans with this is like, oh, this is crazy
Sure.
type of illustration compared to what the story is again. So you have to, we're all hooked. So you have to
Yeah,
hook
yeah,
us
yeah.
again with after reading the first issue, and you did. And it's in the
Well, I
solicitation they talk
appreciate
about
hearing
this
that.
this duck that we see in the first issue
Yeah.
of the whole series. You see this, him dissect or Samantha dissecting, the pieces and putting them in paint cans and all that stuff for the first issue of Beneath the Trees, first series, that you think that you're never going to hear about again, too. Like to me, I'm like, after
Right.
that series is over, you're like, we're actually fittingly watching Dexter over again, and it's not like you know that pool scene that's very similar where there's the body that's all
No.
this.
So
You
here's
know
the
nothing
thing.
about it. I know
Well,
you
that
didn't know
was the
anything
thing.
about
I
it
watched
originally, but
issue one, and then, oh, sorry, the first episode of Dexter, and then I'd already had this idea like
yeah,
back when I started
yeah,
watching it,
yeah.
and so I was like, "Well, I can't watch this
Need more. You can't be
because
done.
I'm
You
like
can't.
yeah, not until I'm done with this series, because I was like, I don't want to stop myself from doing an idea that I might
Hmm.
think would be too close or something,
Hmm.
and so or be influenced or whatever. So I just stopped. So I don't know. Um, but I'm like super curious to see it, obviously,
Yes.
for so many different reasons.
I mean, it's different. It's
But I
definitely
got me.
different. It has this,
Good. I'm glad to hear
this.
that.
It has I mean, one of those things for fans of. It works that way. So if you're a fan of Dexter, you're gonna like the series in a sense that
Cool.
has
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
same vibe to and ideas behind it, but not like so much that it's like the same. They're definitely different. But
I'm glad to hear that, and it
it's
was definitely
fans.
like, yeah, good.
If the
Okay,
fans
sorry.
up, but the idea that you don't think that we're ever going to go back to this duck, like this duck is this a
Sure.
story to you're laying the foundation in this first issue to let people know what Samantha's doing and so on and so forth. But then you're like, okay, it's behind the scenes now. Now we're moving on, and now we're dealing with this other, part of the story. To then open up the pages, and you're dealing with this. You're now going back to that
Yeah.
first issue. You're calling back to that something that we've, like I said, to me, forgot completely about. And now I'm sitting here and I'm
Mm-hmm.
entrenched in it, and I'm like, and then what you do from there is just like, at the end of the issue, I was like, holy shit. so, so I think I
Good.
said it out loud. I think I was reading it in bed on my iPad, and my wife was sitting next to me. And I was like, "Holy shit!" She's like, "Shh, shut up! I'm trying to sleep here," because of the fact that you grabbed me and you got me in a position where I was like, I didn't think you'd be able to do this again. No offense, I just think that it
Oh,
was such a
cool.
great series in what it was that sometimes you see that. You know what I'm talking about? Like the people who were like, it was so successful, let's do it again. And then they just
Sure.
take the first series and they tweak a couple things and make the second series. And you're like, well, that was the identical thing. You're just
Felt
trying to
like felt like
yes.
you're going down the same road. And that was the big fear,
Mhm.
when I first started plotting it out. And I wasn't sure how it was gonna go. So like it wasn't until I really just started wrapping my head around Monica, the duck, the
Mhm.
sister of Daniel Brewer, who's one of the big characters in this next volume. The it wasn't until I started really just putting my head, in her head, that it started to click, and I was like, oh yeah. Okay, this is a way different vibe.
Mhm.
But it's still like it, and the fact that it's the time jump really helped with it too.
Yes.
And that we're watching, or we're revisiting Woodbrook and all the survivors who've moved on with their lives, and we're seeing like we're gonna see a lot of the impacts that the trauma from the first book
Mhm.
has had on their lives, and like you're gonna get a lot of that. So it once I really started diving into that, it felt very much like, oh, this is like we're just watching it how we literally put the lid on it, and now we're taking it off 8 years later, and like what happened.
Mhm.
And a way to revisit it is through the past,
Mhm.
with Samantha and Monica, sort of on a collision course.
I think you're gonna make your readers happy by saying that too. As you're not those people who really like the first series isn't gonna like the second or isn't gonna go into the second volume being like it's more of the same. There's definitely
It
same. Samantha's
sure.
there, like you
So
have
like
Samantha, you have
terrified.
yeah,
Honestly, Justin, that's like the
yeah,
biggest terror, dude.
yes.
Like you're like, please don't let me just end up just hitting like the greatest hits of like the first book, and like, you know what I mean? Like you really that I mean it's that's the curse, I think, of like getting the opportunity to do
Yeah.
more of something, right?
Well, I mean, that's
Um,
if it Fast and the Furious movies, you have those movies that are just like it's like okay,
sure.
they got the formula. Let's just spit these things out. I mean, they're well made and
Sure.
they have budgets and stuff like that. But that's say they just spit them out. But I'm just saying, like, I mean, we just had what the seventh or whatever it is, a Final Destination, and
Sure.
what Final Destination is it's crazy kills that you never see
Right.
coming over and over and over again, and it's that back core story, the actual thread that actually keeps the story going. That this new one, I guess I haven't seen it, but this new Final Destination actually is really good in that sense. And so I think that you have similarities because you're going to have obviously Samantha's in it. You're in Woodbrook, so you're going to have these similarities of the first issue or first series or first volume,
Right.
but you're gonna have a different storyline to connect through, and you have to figure out a different way to tell the story so that we're not all
Yep.
going, might as well just read the first issue again. You know, the first
Sure,
series
sure,
again.
sure.
You got all my money. Here you go, Patrick.
Well, I'm also, I mean, I am intrigued sort of from a formalist lens, like uh doing echoes, I guess would be the best way to
Mm,
put it. Echoes of what happened in that first volume that have like a shift,
yeah.
right? That are like informed by it, and the perspective has changed, which is like honest, like that first page in issue one, which is, I mean, that was like one of the promo pages,
Yeah.
is like it's a different perspective of that
Mm,
thing, right? Of that moment. And that was a very like to me like an intriguing part
mm.
of this, of revisiting Woodbrook and taking things to a different place.
Am I sick if I want that as a big poster to like hang on the wall, that
No,
page?
not at
Okay.
all.
I was just gonna
Not at all.
say, like,
There is a variant that's coming out that's literally just that's going to
yes,
be on the cover.
perfect. It's great. I'll tell you right now, I have multiple Scotty Young tattoos. I am a
Oh,
big Scotty
cool.
Young
Yeah,
fan.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, how cool is that?
Oh my gosh. Well, my buddy who owns my local comic book shop, Galactic Comics and Collectibles, where I get my comics, he's a huge Scotty Young fan too. And I was like, oh my
Cool.
gosh. And the fact that it's not like the 1 in 50
Right,
variant
right.
or like the 1 in 500 or something like that, or some sort of store exclusive or his store exclusive, that to us was like a huge win to us because it was like,
Yeah.
you're going to get that extra if it covers. And I mean, obviously your other covers are great too, but to us, it was like, oh, and Tony Fleece's cover,
Yeah.
let's say,
Yeah, Tony's doing all of them. Tony's doing one of those for all six. Like, that's the new and we got Riley Rossbaum to do another storybook for this one, but Riley wasn't able to do the storybooks for all of them. But Tony's doing his horror posters for every issue, which is awesome. And getting Scotty Young was just like incredible. I mean, to be honest, too, like again, this is all like blowing my mind. Like the fact that that it's that there's enthusiasm for it.
yeah.
There's these incredible people that are putting covers out for it. Like it's a lot of it is just like I still haven't quite caught my breath from the first go round. So it's and I sort of mentioned too when we were before we hit record that
Yeah.
it's I'm knee deep in it. Like I'm
Yeah.
finishing out the books right now, and I'm thankfully like busy enough that I don't have time to stop and think about it too much. So yeah.
Hey, it's cool. And it's to me, it's like, well, I think your issue one of the first volume comes out, and you're known, you're doing covers, you're doing stuff like this. But like, let's be honest, Patrick Horvath, your name got way bigger with this
Oh yeah.
series coming out too. So it's
Oh,
like one of
oh,
those things. If you
majorly.
reached out,
Yeah, yeah,
if
yeah.
you reached out to some of these creators and said, "Hey, can you do a cover for me?" At the very beginning, they'd be like, "Who are you?"
Nobody would know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There would
So now
it
you're like, people are like, I want to be part of this, dude. That's the other thing. It's like Tony and these people and Scotty are like, they're not just doing it because they like you or stuff. They want to be able part of this stuff too because it's like they like the series as well. This is not just like they're fans.
they're definitely, yeah, they enjoy it. And but I mean it's also like, oh, I'm with Tony, like I mean like Feral and Stray Dog fans, the Venn diagram of like Beneath the Trees and
Oh
Feral
yeah,
and Stray Dog fans
yeah,
is almost like a complete circle.
yeah,
Like
yes, yeah.
they had people from issue one telling me like, oh my God, I love this. This reminds me of Stray Dogs so much. It was like, oh, what's Stray Dogs? I hadn't read it yet. And they're like, you have to read it. And then we ended up tabling at WonderCon right next to Tony in 2024.
Yeah.
And so then it was just like, I mean, it was perfect. But I got to meet him in person for the first time. And then he's a total sweetheart, super generous with his
Oh yeah.
advice, like, and his work. And it's just, yeah. So it's been, so this is a very super excited to have him on all these covers.
Yeah, and it makes sense. And you think about it, Tony's either the horror vibe of it, and Tony's the horror cover variants that he's been doing with Stray Dogs and Feral and all these things
Mhm.
have been awesome. Tony style artwork kind of fits, like you mentioned, because of the Stray Dogs part
Oh,
of it.
perfect.
And
Yeah.
then Scotty style artwork is more the
Oh,
childish looking
perfect.
things to it.
It's
So it
totally
all works
perfect.
out
Yeah, yeah,
really
yeah.
great. So in that sense, it's just so weird too sometimes as a fan of your this series this Beneath the Trees, also as a fan of these other artists, seeing them work in that world, like seeing Scotty draw Samantha to me was cool was cool in that sense.
Yes.
I can't imagine,
Yes.
like I said, having like your creation, your thing, and you're the artist as well. So something that you've drawn is someone else's
It's a
drawing, which
mind
was
blower,
cool.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah, like I said, I'm still wrapping my head around it.
Yeah. Well, the fact that I'll tell you right now, his Scotty just did a painting at Heroes Con,
Hmm.
and he does that live. They do the live thing there, and they auction
Oh
them
yeah,
off at the
yeah. The
end.
dog, yeah.
$15,000.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw it close at 15. That's nuts. I also saw the reactions in the room from the video when it closed, and I was like, yeah, that's incredible.
It's insane. But it was just kind of funny. I was like, timing on this was so insane. My buddy and I were texting. I was like, yeah, dude, you'd have to like sell your shop to be able to pay for that and stuff. And I still don't think you'd have enough money to do that. But no, it's true. It's cool to see this. And I love that in the world we live in comics, this collaborative place where someone's like, obviously these creators and these artists are getting paid for this. This is not like they're just handing you a cover. It's part of their job.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
getting paid to do this and so on and so forth. But to see that they'll collaborate with another artist and be like, hey, I want people to buy this other person's comic, so I'm going to do a cover for it, and so on and so forth. So which is really cool, and I loved seeing that. And so that's one of the cool things about comics is that aspect of it.
for sure.
Mm.
100% agree.
But Rite of Spring, where did the title come from?
Obviously, there's the Stravinsky. If
Yeah,
you're familiar at all with that piece, then you know that there's
yeah,
definitely sacrifice involved in a bears. So that was part of it, but also, I mean, sacrifice is um at the heart of it.
yes,
And obviously, I don't want to get too spoilery or
yes,
anything, but maybe just leave it at that.
yeah,
Probably not that hard to imagine,
yeah,
like, what the implications of that might be. Um, but that was, and it's springtime, and
yeah,
it's, bears come out of hibernation in spring. That's when it's set. It made all the sense in the world to have, issue one or volume one end with her essentially going into a hibernation of sorts, and then to have the immersion from that at the beginning of this, and to be also like the time jump. There's something
yes,
about it where it just kind of felt
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
we're like waking up. We're like waking up in the world again and seeing
We all
like
fell asleep for 8 years. I mean, now we're eight
yeah,
years
exactly.
later.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Speaking of that connectivity of this, so we read this Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees Volume One for my book club at
Oh,
Galactic
cool.
Comics and Collectibles. One question I forgot to ask, I think last time, or just was going to email you or something, is in the first volume, there's animal bears in the
Mhm.
woods, as well as people like Samantha or bears like Samantha. Is there, what's the, so bears are, there's also animals and human, animals.
Yeah, and regular animals and human animals.
There's no, it's just that's the way it is. There's no
It's
like,
very much it's very much the Pluto Goofy paradox.
yes,
The inspiration for it came from the Richard Scarry children's
yeah,
books
yeah,
for Busytown. And I was early on like looking at it as sort of a just for inspiration. And I saw on the cover, I believe the book is called What Do People Do All Day? And it's like it shows like the little town, and
yeah,
it has a couple of shop fronts, and one of them was a butcher shop. And there's a pig that works at the butcher shop, and there's like literally like sausage links like in the window. And I was like,
yeah,
that's so messed up. Like,
yes, yes, yes,
what is this? Like, what is the
yeah,
meat?
yeah,
And then they would also have like, you would see like a raccoon person walking a dog, like an animal dog, stuff
yeah,
like that. And so I was like, he's very much like tongue in cheek having fun
yeah,
with this weird, like just having animals and people animals. And I was like, I really need to do that. That's so messed up. And then I ended up I was like, I need to have a
yeah,
butcher,
yes, yeah,
obviously. And so like that's kind of how that all sort of came together. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, oh, we should have like animals be the
yes,
one that know Samantha's true nature. Like
yeah,
nature should be the one that knows the secret about Samantha before
yeah,
anybody else does. And then I was just sort of off to the races with it and became
yeah,
this sort of like, interesting metaphor that you could play with. And like that's kind of where the whole thing grew out of. But initially it was me just being like, this is so messed up that he thinks it's
it
like
really
butcher
is.
pig.
Yeah.
Like that's that I mean, like what is it? What are the implications? Like like and so anyway, so that's yeah, it's definitely to me like a weird, interesting thing that I just really enjoy
Mhm.
having throughout and continues, as you'll be happy to know throughout
Yes.
the Rite of Spring as well.
it makes it's just it's another level of creepiness that's not an actual like creepy thing. It's not like a
Yeah,
murder happening on screen on page
right.
like you do. But like yeah, it was that level of like it's just so weird that like this Samantha's walking around and there's just a bear that's also a
Yeah.
bear that's like I don't. Then it goes even further. Like, is she attracted to that bear? Like, is it like
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
like wait, it's one of her own? Like, this is weird, but yeah. So it's a funny thing on that thing. Yeah, but I mean, for I just wanted to make sure I asked that question because it's been stuck with me for a while. But yeah, it makes sense. Okay.
Sure. I mean
Um.
that, and also Justin, just to point
Yeah.
out too, like it's like one of those things. I'm a huge fan of having the stuff that's not like 100% digestible and forgettable.
Mhm.
And the fact that like I don't know the true answer of like what the connection is between Samantha and the
Mhm.
Bears. I think there's a lot of it that's going to be that the connections made by the reader, which
Yeah.
I hope. And so I'm glad to hear you're still thinking about it because that was the goal. Like I definitely wanted to have it be this weird thing that was like this, but how about this? Like, they're like, oh yeah, I think this about it. And we're like, oh yeah, well, I think this about it. And that to me is like that's the interaction I love having with the reader.
See, maybe that point of view that you saw on that page, that splash pages and the previous pages coming out, it's actually the point of view from the bear that where the bear's looking
Exactly.
at like the thing. I think this is a one shot here, in the workings that it's all the views from all the animals that are out there, like the dog being
Yes.
walked and the just looking at the thing.
This is a very good idea.
And maybe it's like Secret Life of Pets or something like that, where they actually could talk to each other, but they only talk like we all hear barking and growling, but they're actually talking. It's a whole other world. It's another vibes going on there, but no. So so for 8 years, we're going ahead 8 years. Well, first of all, why eight
Right.
years? Is it just a
Um,
random number you picked, or is it specifically to something?
it's not like necessarily dialed into a specific thing. If for whatever reason, like it felt like the number.
Mhm.
And it wasn't, I don't know why having like a whole decade felt like too clean. And
Mhm.
so then I wanted to have something like kind of off. And I was like, eight. What if it was like 8 years? And that seems like a
Yes.
lot could happen in 8 years. And I
Yeah.
guess, I mean, it's like election cycles are in fours. So like
Hmm.
that could be that maybe, even though that's not really necessarily play and it comes
Yeah.
into play, but yeah, I think that was why. That was I just kind of wanted um a a big jump that was going to bring us into the 1990s. And it's interesting because it's like not the if you there's a couple times where you see dates
Hmm.
and specifically, and if you match them up with our dates, it's off by like a day.
Hmm.
Like it won't these calendars like don't exist.
Yeah.
um and so but I wanted it to be like close enough to our own reality that
Yeah.
is like just shifted a little bit.
A little bit.
um
Culture. Yeah.
and so that was yeah, that was kind of all part of it. I very specifically though wanted it to be in the 90s.
90s, yeah, which makes
um
sense. I mean, there are other things. I mean, there's shows that I've seen that are alternate reality shows that have like 70s and then they go into the 80s and they go into the 90s.
sure.
Because number one, it helps push the story further forward in the future, but also gives you something else to play with. Like you're now in a different decade, so there's
Oh
different things that you
yeah,
can play
new
with and things like that.
context.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all, I mean, and it's very much I mean the big one of the big, I guess I should say, elements to Rite of Spring is that it's like the best way I think about it is like that first volume, Beneath the Trees, was very much like almost like a diorama town, and
Hmm.
here's this drama in the town. And in Rite of Spring, like the lid is off, and now there's influence from like the
Hmm.
rest of like the world. And it's undeniable. And I feel like, I mean, experientially, I feel like a lot of people were sort of had that,
Yeah.
from like 70s to 80s. There was very like insular kind of vibe for a lot of smaller towns. And then once like the 90s and the internet happened, basically, and cable TV started just like exploding, it became like this larger kind of monoculture of
Hmm.
like, what pop culture was. And now we're sort of seeing like a lot of influence from big cities into smaller towns and things like that. So that was sort of all that stuff was super interesting to me.
it's funny because that makes sense because like we're watching, my wife and I are finishing up rewatching Seinfeld again, and it's like what the difference is between the first season of Seinfeld and the ninth season of Seinfeld, and like the
Sure.
trial that happens at the end of the ninth season, like the final episodes, like wouldn't have potentially worked in the first season because so much technology, like you see him actually sitting on a laptop at one point in the ninth season, and in the first season, laptops weren't like, there weren't even cell phones at the
Right.
time. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's like this, you get to deal with a bunch of different things, and Samantha's world went from this insular things, like you said, to this broader thing because of cable and internet and all this other stuff. So there's a bigger picture there, bigger, more eyes on you, like you were saying. Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's what has. I mean, are we gonna find out? Like you said, I don't want to spoil anything, but like there's gonna be these look backs and things like that. Are we gonna find out what Samantha's been doing for 8 years, or is this basically we're just starting in 8 years? And I don't want to spoil it for anybody if it is a spoiler, but like what has Samantha been doing for 8 years?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's we are I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't want to get too deep into
Yeah.
it. The there's definitely a a growth amongst the characters that you're gonna see
Mhm.
as you sort of reconnect with them. And Samantha herself, I don't want to
Yeah.
spoil too
No,
much in
it's fine.
terms of
It's
like
fine.
what
Yeah.
she's been up to. But I will say this, like, there's definitely like a lot of this while we've jumped into the future, like there's definitely a lot of looks into the past
Okay. So
that
yeah.
we're gonna have. And I feel like the if anybody had seen or read the Ashcan, which is like a mini story that took place in 1962 with Samantha.
Mm.
That wasn't like completely out of left field.
Okay.
So there's going to be connections with that as well, I would say.
See, you built yourself a little world here too. Like it's this it's a unique and terrifying world in the sense that like I don't know. It's one of those things that like I think I mentioned this when you talked last time, but when I read Nailbiter for the first time, I was so glad that the artwork was done by Mike Henderson in a way that was cartoonish in a
Sure. Yeah.
sense. Like it definitely wasn't this, there's some artists out there who make these things look so realistic that it's a photo. And I'm like, well,
Right.
not sure that's the comic book that I want to read. I want to be able to eat food. I want to be able to sleep and
Yeah. Yeah.
things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there is something to say at this story. You can tell the most horrific and graphic and disgusting tale in this world you've built, with Beneath the Trees. And it's still going to have a little bit of lighterness to it because of the artwork that you put around it. And so like
Sure.
it's not gonna give me nightmares, which is great.
Right.
But, the story itself might give you some nightmares, just the idea behind what's going on. But like it's like you're reading it and you're like, okay, it's softer, it's easier to make,
Yeah. Yeah.
more
Yeah.
palatable in
For
that sense.
sure.
And I think that's great. And I think that's what that does is it opens up your readership. I think there's a lot of people out there who might not read this story if it was based with real characters in like actual
No.
human
Well,
beings and things like
what's
that.
weird too is like I don't know if the emotional investment would be as
Mhm.
strong if they were just regular humans,
Yeah.
which is interesting to me as well. Like I felt that a lot of folks are, I mean, there's something about it that kind of catches you off guard. And I had a similar experience when I was reading Stray Dogs,
Yeah.
where you're like, you weren't sure, like, because of how everything looks, you're like not sure how far this is going to go.
Yeah.
And so there's something that's kind of interestingly like transgressive because of that with this stuff. And then there's also like I love hearing from folks that like I'm a huge horror guy.
Yeah.
But some folks are like, I hate horror, but I like this book a lot. And I've
Yeah.
actually been exploring other stuff too, which I think is terrific. Like I do feel like there's a ton of great stuff in the horror genre that like, maybe some folks just miss out on because they kind of don't they discount a lot of it just because it's too much or whatever.
Yeah.
But to help like kind of build a bridge to some of that stuff is very fun for me too.
I mean, it's also traumatizing to all of us who grew up with like Richard scary
Yeah.
books, and now we're like, okay, now these people are murdering each other, or like with stray dogs, and like watching all dogs go to heaven, and all these other. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
that is a bad one because dogs die, but like, there's this childhood fluffiness of the childhood, and then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, here we
Yeah. Yeah.
go. Samantha's a bear over there, cutting someone up into quarters and putting them in paint cans in the ground. Like, there is this like Like, if you just go from read, like, if my son were to read Richard Scarry up to the point and then just read this, he'd be like, "Holy shit, what the
It
hell
would be
just
bad.
happened?"
Yeah, that would be bad.
It's a
Yeah,
definite,
it's funny.
definite.
I mean, it's very much like for folks like us, like it was,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm in my mid 40s, but it was
yeah.
very much like taking this stuff from my childhood
Well,
and then combining it with the stuff I've grown to create like in adulthood, and it's all sort of just, I remember thinking it felt really bad about it
yes,
when I started doing it. I was like, oh, like I feel like this is wrong, but I think
yeah.
that means it's a good sign. Like I should keep, sort of exploring
But
this. Yeah.
it's done more tasteful though, I think, than like even some of these like new horror movies, that because the rights have been, copyright law has put them in the public domain, and you have these Winnie the Pooh
Oh,
horror
sure,
movies and
sure.
all this, where it's just like we're gonna
Right,
make
right,
this
right.
bloody, gory, whatever. It's barely even touching the actual original story, but it's
Oh,
using
sure,
those
sure, sure.
characters and all that. Like, this is a completely new thing. It's not connected to anything. It looks like Richard Scarry. It looks like some of these things, but
Yeah,
it's its
definitely
own
invoking that
story,
nostalgia. Yeah,
which gives you the freedom, obviously, to do what you want. So you don't have to worry about staying
sure.
within. It's your story, but it does bring, and invokes that nostalgia. And also, to me, like, I was born in '86, so I'm almost 40, and so
Oh,
seeing
yeah.
the '80s, then going into the '90s, like, this is going to be fun things. And let's be honest, right now,
Yeah, yeah.
people love nostalgia right now, Patrick. Like, this is like a
I mean,
huge thing. Like,
they always. I feel like it's always a big win with the fans, to tap into it. And I also, yeah, I mean, to your point, I didn't want to make anything that felt mean,
yeah.
which is hard because like I literally just have a psychopath as the main character who's like a serial killer,
But it's a
and
bear too, though. I mean, a
that was
bear,
the
like, it's a vicious thing. It's not like this,
I
like,
know, I know,
it
yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
cuddly, but like not really.
Totally terrifying. If I ran into a bear in the
Yeah.
woods, I would not feel cuddly. Like I would
Would you say,
definitely be
hey, would you
terrified.
be like, Samantha, Samantha? Would you
Yeah, yeah,
call the
yeah.
bear Samantha?
No, 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 no. I wouldn't even. I would just like either pretend that I'd probably just play dead. The
Or be dead?
yeah, 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 or be dead. Yeah. What was the thing? Oh, yeah, yeah. But it definitely wanted to have I wanted to have the violence show up in a way that either was like informing, the character, or like playing into the greater like emotional arc with the rest of the characters in the book, and to have the impact,
Hmm.
like scene, instead of just being like throwaway. Like
Yeah.
definitely didn't want it to be throwaway like at any point. So it's yeah, it is interesting to some of the stuff that I see, I kind of feel like it's sort of disingenuous in what it's
Hmm.
doing, just because it just kind of feels like more of an exploitative thing.
Yes.
And that's just not my cup of tea. And I'm not like poo-pooing it. I'm just saying like it's just not for me.
Yeah.
No pun intended. The
uh,
but for myself, like it's undeniable that the nostalgic part is I'm sure a
yeah.
huge element as to why folks were even interested in this at
Hmm.
all. And I think maybe the what I ended up doing with the story is like something that kind of ended up keeping some of those folks from throwing it away, and instead like giving it a look and a
Yeah.
closer read.
it, it's not only this like murder. And I don't want to spoil anything, but there is a scene. It's the duck from the first issue's sister. What's her name again?
Monica.
Monica, where she's like getting ready, and she's like in her apartment and she's walking around in her underwear.
Yeah.
And I laugh a little bit because there's multiple things. First of all, I'm like, there's never been a Richard Scarry where a woman's walking around with her underwear. That was the first of all. The second thing is, it reminded me of the Howard the Duck movie, in the
Yes.
sense
Yeah.
like like the opening sequence. There's a duck taking a shower, a woman taking a
Or
shower,
in the
and it's just like,
bathtub or something. Yeah,
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 that's what
yeah.
it was. Yeah, and she's just sitting there, and like Howard crushes through her wall on her way
Yeah.
on his way to Earth, and she's just like, there's just duck boobs, and I'm thinking to myself,
Yeah.
it's the weirdest. Like, to me, am I still to the point where I think it's Marvel's first nudity in a movie, and it's duck
Yes, I
boobs.
think so. Yeah.
But I just laugh at this kind of thing. It's like that weird, and then like, obviously, what's her face tries to sleep with Howard the Duck, which is a weird situation and its
Also
own thing.
strange. Yeah, that was
I
a
mean, one movie,
strange.
one movie she's making out with her son in Back to the Future, and in the next movie she's
Right.
making out with a duck. I don't like this whole they did Leah Thompson a little dirty in the 80s, but yeah, it's like this weird like thing. It's like I think picture him like you just don't picture these animals in this way, and so it's like when you
Right.
see it, it makes me giggle a little bit. That's the other
Sure.
part of it. It's
Sure.
not
Sure.
just
Sure.
it's a horror book, but you're like looking at it, you're like, oh, that's pretty funny. I'm sure while you were drawing it or writing it, you're like, that's pretty funny. This is gonna be funny. I'm gonna draw
I'm
Monica in her
constant. Yeah. I mean,
underwear.
I'm like, I mean, it definitely felt like it was. I remember doing it and be like, well, I mean, if she's like getting ready, she's probably not
Yeah,
wearing
yeah,
pants. Like, I mean,
yeah.
like it's just like it's there's a certain. I guess it's to me, it's like it's amusing to have a level of realism in it like that.
Hmm.
That's like same thing with the violence and like in the anatomy of stuff, like when you're cutting these poor
Yeah,
people open, like
yeah.
it's like all that. There's a certain level of like verisimilitude that I'm trying to hang on to while still doing like the
Hmm.
cutesy, animal people thing. That it feels like that's like it's necessary for the
Yeah.
world of this book.
It does, and it's always fun to me, and that's one of those things that caught my attention is the idea like ants or Bugs Life or these movies that they use like bottle caps for
Oh, sure.
tables and like these like taking and
Right.
making ants humans in the sense that they have everything we have. It's just they don't build the table. They take our bottle cap and make it into a thing. And so
Sure.
I'm sure it must be a thing as you're writing this like what are we going to have these anamorphic animals like what are they going to be doing and so like having them
Mhm.
cooking dinner on the stove and making soup
Sure,
or
sure, sure.
whatever, and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's a weird thing to see a duck stirring something on the thing.
yeah.
Hopefully it's not duck soup, but like doing that, even that most minuscule duty, it's just weird to see. And so I think that's what's cool about it. I think it takes you out of your element in this world we live in, where like the actual real life we live in is pretty scary right now. To actually go
Sure.
into a thing where it's scary, but it's like also, like I said, you have to like look at everything. What are these animals doing? What's going on in this life? And they're just like, well, they're acting like normal people would act. Like
Yeah, yeah,
Monica's
yeah.
going to try to find what happened to her brother. That's what we would all do if our brother were missing for a
Right,
while,
right, right.
but she happens to be a duck, and so it's just a cool thing. I mean, obviously, that character Monica is created based off of the fact that her brother died or is being buried at least in the first issue of the first series. Other animals that are in this town, things like that, are there thought behind what animal becomes what character, like what duty, like as a dog being a police officer, does that make sense?
Sure.
Is
Yeah.
that what you're trying to do? You're trying to like connect some sort of duties to the animal, making the similarities there, or is it just like I want to make this one a dog?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting. I think at this point, like every cop I have is a dog. Which I wasn't realizing at a certain point through the first one, but now it's like very much a conscious choice,
Yeah,
which I find really amusing. But it's some of it's like playing counter to what is sort of a stereotype of the animal, and
yeah,
the other stuff is playing into it very much so.
okay,
Like I picked like Birdie to be a turtle because he was going to have this arc that made him very
yeah,
much an introvert, and that was going to be, and that's we'll see
yeah,
more of him. And then the same like Charlie the mole from the first
yeah,
volume, like having him work at the shop was specifically like she liked it because his eyes were horrible,
yeah,
and she would just fudge the inventory like all the time for stuff
yeah,
that she was taking or whatever. So like it was very much like, and he couldn't tell, he didn't know what he was
yeah,
doing. So so like there's certain things like that I'm having fun. Like having Melody be a butcher
yeah,
was very much like cats are carnivores, and so that made all
yeah,
the sense in the world to me.
yeah.
Things like that. And also
Okay,
I didn't even know this, but I found this was just like a happy accident, but I have this whole running thing in that first volume of the lavender, and being allergic to it.
yeah,
And cats are, I guess, like known for being very much not into lavender. And I had no idea. And it was such a like I had other people like, oh, this is so smart that he like used the fact that cats are like allergic to lavender or whatever. I was like, I had no, that was a complete like serendipitous thing.
it's just you're just smart. It's just all in your brain that you didn't know
I
it.
don't
You
know if
just
it's
do it
smart.
somehow.
I just feel like it was the guiding hand of fate being like, here's this book, like here's some ideas for the book or whatever the fates were sort of inspiring me.
It sounds like you have fun doing this too. Obviously, you
Oh, for
wouldn't do it
sure.
if you were having fun, but like there's a lot of work that goes into it. You're doing everything but lettering, right? Hassan's
Right.
doing
Yes.
lettering again,
Hmm.
and so you have all the duties to do that some people have been smart enough, Patrick, to hand off to someone else to do.
I know.
Not that we want that, because obviously if you want volume two to look like volume one, in a sense, you want the same
Yeah,
artist
that
and
I
you want
did
the
that
same
to myself.
story.
I've
But
100% tied
yeah,
myself, painted myself into that corner where I have to write it and ink
that's
it and
fine, because
paint
I
it.
think a lot of us would. And honestly, I'll tell you right now, it would be difficult to sell a second volume if people are like, "Well,
If it
here's our new
wasn't, yeah, yeah,
artist."
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No, 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 no,
Here's the
no. It
new
wouldn't be the
writer or
same.
whatever. Yeah, so it wouldn't be the same.
Wouldn't be the
But
same.
it does take up a lot of your time and so on and so forth. So you have committed to another 6 issues, and you're working on that
Mhm.
right now. Um, we're talking this a couple weeks before it actually comes out, but like this will release on the day that the actual issue drops. Are you hoping, or is this? I mean, obviously you're not going to say anything permanent, but you have more ideas if you want to do more in the future?
Oh
Like, is there
yeah,
like,
for
is this
sure. Yeah, yeah,
Woodbrook? And it's not that I say, not that you're holding it to it or anything like that, or anything like that. Again,
yeah.
issue
Yeah,
one of the second volume comes out the day that this episode drops, so we're not even
yeah,
into
yeah,
the
yeah.
second volume yet. But
Yep.
if it's successful again and all that stuff, you would like to continue being
Oh,
in
I mean,
Wood in
like,
this
yeah,
world.
I'm a very much like never say never. Like,
Mm,
if people are into this one as well, then like I would love to be able to do more. Like,
mm,
it just won't like the ideas like just kind of keep coming. So like
yeah,
I feel like and I have ideas for tons of other stuff as well.
yeah,
And hopefully we'll be doing more stuff, even in a writing capacity, sooner than later. But I mean, like, I mean, like, listen, this book has been a gift. Like,
mm,
it's one of those things where I mean, my career really took a hard turn once this opportunity popped up, and so I'm like all in right now.
mm-hmm.
Very happy to continue doing more of this or whatever I get to do. I mean, it's definitely like, and I mean, I guess I've read this several places, but they always say like one of the best signs of success is that you get to do again, you get to do
Yeah.
more.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to do it. So yeah, I would totally be into it if I got the chance to do more for sure.
And I will say, I mean, I talked to Kyle Starks about his Where Monsters Lie series, which the
Mhm.
second volume came out, and the first volume sold out like incredibly, and he had multiple prints
Yeah.
of the things and all that stuff. And so going into the second volume, he's like, well, if it sold that, wow, like if it did, if like the fifth issue of the series is selling out and going into second printing, you'd have to think that the first issue of the next series would do well of the same
Oh, for sure.
world. And it didn't strike as hot as the first series.
Oh, sure, sure, sure.
So
Hmm.
and he was like, obviously, you know, there are his diehard fans, and obviously it's in a trade. Maybe the trade will do something different, or whatever. But he was just hoping it would do better. Obviously, he did fine. He's not an issue with
Sure, sure,
better today.
sure.
And so that's obviously a fear in this thing. But also, I think that I work in the beer industry as well. I work in doing can art. I'm an artist for a brewery, and so you could sell a brewery or a restaurant or a bar or a convenience store a 4 pack of beer twice for sure. Because if you sell it the first time, it's something new, it's something exciting, they'll buy it. And then if
Yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
sell out of it, then obviously the retail store is going to buy it again from you because, oh, we just sold out of it so quickly. It's that second time that if
Yeah.
that sells out again, then you know that this is actually going to go and people are going to want to buy it and so on and so forth. Because it's very,
Yep.
not very easy, but it's easier to sell the first 6 issues than it is the second 6 issues. And I will tell you,
Oh, hell
I
yeah, dude.
do think that you'll be fine in this, but I'm hoping, and
Oh
that's why
man,
we
I
talk on
don't.
these
I mean,
things. I
like, yeah,
want
yeah, yeah.
people to buy this thing, and so I want
Yes, yes,
more.
please.
I'm a fan of a lot of things, and I'm a fan of things this pop culture side of things, Star Wars, Marvel, independent comics, all this stuff. That I'm just glad I live in a world that there's more of it, and if
Sure.
whether it's subpar or amazing, it doesn't matter. I mean, I want the next Star Wars thing because I get to go to the theaters and watch another Star Wars movie. You know,
Sure,
to me,
sure,
I'm
sure.
so lucky that we still get to do this because I thought when I was born they weren't going to make any more. Like that's
Right,
the
right,
like
right.
that was the point where we was in. And so I will say, you know, I'm not the only person to say this, and I'm probably not the official person to say it, but the second volume, first issue, is phenomenal. And so I'm
Oh,
hoping
thank you. I
people get out
appreciate
there
that.
and buy this thing because it's worth it. It has that shock moment in there. It has that setup, and it's getting you ready for the series. That I cannot wait for more of this. So,
Cool.
you know, I'm telling you, that's the reason I'm saying selfishly, I want volume three already, and I haven't even gotten through volume two yet. I would selfishly want volume three, and so, but also we want Patrick to continue making comics and things like that too. So we want that too. So you know, it is what it is.
But
But
I really appreciate hearing that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely I mean it's the same thing with that first volume. Like I was like I've signed the contract for,
Yeah.
the second volume. And so I'm gonna deliver that, and I would love to keep going more. Like I'll never put a definitive end on something.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's, not unless it absolutely 100% needs it, but it's other than that, like it just feels foolish to just be like, nope, that's it. Bye.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, unless you just really have, your reasons, and that's fine. But I'm like I'm having a ton of fun with this world. So I mean, like,
Yeah. And it's a horror story, so there's no reason that Samantha can't go to space, right? I mean, like we've talked about this.
yeah,
There's no
just keep
reason like
jumping
Samantha
forward.
can't go to
Just keep jumping
space.
forward in time, my man.
Yeah, like it's just one of those things that like it's true. I mean, there's no. I forget who was saying that the other day. They were talking about making something, and they're like, I got to go as far as I can make it to be like Jason's, where I can go to space. That's like the goal. It's like the next thing is to go to space, and like it's true. I mean,
Yeah,
not,
yeah,
well,
yeah.
not even have to be a horror now. I mean, Fantastic. Sorry. Fast and the Furious went to space, so like it's just all these
Oh,
people.
yeah.
You have to go
That's a
far
good point.
enough, and you have to sell
But I
enough
feel like,
comics to
I
get to
mean,
the
it's a
point where you
good
need to go to
pedigree.
space.
You got like Jason, Hellraiser,
Yeah, yeah,
really Leprechaun went to space.
yeah.
I mean, like, if you can make it to
It's
space,
a
then you
feat.
got it
It's like one of
made.
those things that you're like,
That's
it's
a franchise.
you go platinum for a record or something like that. This is the next thing. You're like if you like solidified your place in horror history if you could make something
Yeah.
go to space.
Hell
You know,
yes.
and plus again, the juxtaposition of an animal going to obviously the pilot of the spacecraft would have to be
I
a
mean,
monkey,
like,
right?
if we're doing it, we gotta
Yeah,
have Leica, the space dog, involved
yeah,
somehow.
and you
Like,
could have a
it's
monkey.
a whole thing. Yep, and a monkey.
Yeah, that's
Correct.
got to be on those
And
things.
I mean, like, listen, this is my bread and butter because that shit is sad as hell.
So I mean,
If there's anything I like making it cute and fun and sad and
it's sad as
upsetting.
hell. Yeah, it's
I
upset.
need all those things.
Make us cry. But yeah, no, it's so there's and that's the thing is it's not just you mentioned this is a horror story for a bunch of people because it's not just slasher horror. There is that in there. Obviously, there's some gruesome spots in here.
Sure.
This is a horror story. Samantha kills animals, like it kills people, kills things. Like this
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
happens in this sort of book, but there is a heart to it, and there is a story to it, and you're dealing with a little bit different side of things in the second volume with the loss of someone that Samantha has killed, and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you're
yeah.
you're going to deal with that now too. So there's a storyline that goes to it that's not just as simple of hey, we got this one person's killing a bunch of people, and that's the story. And there's more to it. And I think that's what's cool about the second volume. You caught me by surprise in the sense that I was very, very, very satisfied with that. That you didn't just
Oh,
go,
cool.
Samantha's back to killing people again. Like it's just like there's
No,
more
it's very
to
much
heart.
what
Yeah.
it's interesting because like I tend to like I'll take on or I'll enter into projects sort of focused on an existential angle on it.
Yeah.
And the first volume was like Samantha, who's this serial killer, who's defined herself in this very specific way, and then to have that upended basically by this chaotic evil
Yeah.
that shows up in town. And then in this and Rite of Spring with Monica, it's somebody who's like sort of, existentially like redefined themselves around the
Mhm.
loss of her
Yeah.
brother. You know what I mean? And she's like radically changed her life. And again, with those like 8 years of just like, this unsatisfactory pursuit has sort of like gnarled herself into who we meet in issue one. And that's definitely, I mean, I'm glad to hear it's a satisfying read. It was very important to me to make it feel like an earnest,
Mhm.
a thing for sure.
And yeah, and you meet new people and you're gonna see old people. And this is really cool about that. Is like it's like you want to live in that. You don't want an entirely new well, it's like one of those. This is the Final Destination where it's like it's the same story, but like you meet an entirely new
A new
cast.
cast. Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
yeah, so this is cool about this is that there's gonna be people that you're gonna notice from first series. They again, I think you
Oh,
probably could.
there's so much power in that history
Yeah,
that I feel like it would be foolish to not, utilize it.
yeah. And I think you could potentially read because you're getting enough of a backstory in this first issue to understand why Monica's doing what she's doing.
Sure.
To that you wouldn't really need to to go back and read it. But to me, I'm like, I'm there's a new Robert Langdon book from Dan Brown coming out, and I'm reading all the old ones because I'm like,
Sure.
I want to know. They're not probably have anything to do with this new book, but I want to get complete. I want to complete
Oh, it's a
the old
richer
stuff. Yeah,
experience.
yeah.
Totally richer
So
experience. I
yeah.
I'm glad they I mean I've actually heard from I believe somebody wrote a review who had not read the first trade as an experiment because they were like, I'm curious. And because
See
I'm
what it's
always
like.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And it was satisfying enough.
Hmm.
But it was it's but yeah, I mean like what you're saying, like to me, I'm always just like I need to know everything that's available to like just have the most satisfying like experience of how it was intended. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm a total fan of that completist stuff. Like
Yes. Well, like
you
it's
know,
like the bus
it's
driver could be from the first two books or movies or whatever, and you're like, the bus driver only literally says hi to the person coming on there, but I'm like, but he was in the first movie. That's amazing. It's so
yeah, yeah,
cool that
yeah.
he actually came along the
And
whole
it's
time.
sort of like it's one of those things where you're like, and they did this, and if you
Yeah,
notice this
yeah,
detail, then
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like, and oh my God, them, and then all of a sudden, like it. I mean, it's interesting to me too because like 8 years on, and you
yeah,
have like I had I mean, some folks have pointed out the hair, and so
yeah,
like Samantha's fur is graying,
yeah.
and with Monica, she has basically like a dyed black ombre going on where she's
Mhm.
growing out her roots. And it's all informing the thing. You only have like so many pages. And so there's so much detail that speaks to character in even those little like the bus driver waving hi
Yeah,
panels or
yeah, yeah.
whatever that you're like, all that stuff counts. I'm a
So
huge fan of that
the other
stuff.
way you could do it is to read the issue, this first issue, it comes out on July 9th, and then go back and just read the rest of it as like a
Yes.
prequel to it, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
go
yeah.
back and read, jump back and forth in that sense
For
to it.
sure. Oh, for
I
sure.
know before I read Rite of Spring #1, I did read the series over again because I just
Oh, cool,
wanted to read
cool.
it first of all,
Sure.
and then I read it, and then again I read it again last night
Oh, fun.
before coming on and chat with you because I was just thinking to myself I wanted to read this again. Obviously, we weren't going to spoil anything, but I wanted to read it again, and I'll probably read it again before issue 2 comes out. So it's like one of those things that's just like it's a fun thing, and they're not hard. This is not a knock against anybody either. It's not a hard read. It's not a lot. You don't have to put
No,
like a
no,
lot
no,
of
no.
energy into doing this either. It's not like you're like, oh crap, what did I miss on panel one? You do a good job at writing it as well as illustrating
I'm
it.
glad to
So
hear that.
yes.
I'm a fan of I mean like hopefully this is like a fast read.
Mhm.
And can invite multiple reads that way. But it's like but to me it's not I'm a big fan of making it like as easy on the reader as possible
Mhm.
to just kind of get through just have fun getting through the
Yeah.
book. You know what I
And
mean?
then go
Like
back and
it's
read it again. Like
yeah, for sure, for sure.
and it does. It's so funny because like it's a mystery in a sense, obviously, because you have that there's a mystery going on. You don't know the end of the book. Uh, but even knowing the end, even when I knew what was going to happen at the end of the first volume, I was still like excited to read this book again. It's the same as me going on and watching Dexter over again. I'm like, I know what happens. Like I know what this whole series is about, but I'm reading it, watching it again because I'm enjoying the journey, and I think that's what Volume 1 did for me again. It was the journey to get to Volume 2, which is Rite of Spring, which comes out July 9th, which is the day that we're
Mhm.
dropping this episode. So go to your LCS and grab it. Make sure if you can't get there today because you're listening to this in the morning, call them, message them on Facebook, say, hey, can you save me a copy? How can I get this thing? And I'm hoping it goes into second printing because that means it sold a bunch of the first printing, and then you get that too.
That
But
would be amazing.
yeah, and if you are a trade waiter, understand nowadays. I understand the whole idea about reading the
For
complete
sure.
story and having it for your shelf or whatever. So eventually it will come out in trade too. And if you haven't gotten it yet, you can grab Volume 1 right now and get that going as well. But it's always fun talking to you, Patrick, coming on here and
Oh,
chatting.
likewise, man. I appreciate that.
Chatting, it's just so much fun. You again, not to make your head bigger, it only can fit so much on the screen here, but you're fantastic at what you do. So keep doing it. I
Oh,
want
thank
more,
you.
but I want Beneath the Trees Volume 17. I want this to be
All
like,
right.
manga. I want to, where there's like just forever and ever and ever for 57 issues or
Oh
volumes
my
of this
God.
series. I want there you go. You can do a manga version of it. You could do a, I'm just trying to think of ideas you can do here now. And I'm waiting for that one shot where it's the point of view from the animals,
Yeah.
and what the animals, like their pets, and what they're
Yeah, yeah,
doing.
yeah. But it's like
Secret
Secret Life of
Life,
Pets.
Secret Life of Beneath the Trees.
something
and
like
it's
that.
like what Samantha, when the people leave their house, it's the pets get together and they talk about things. Did you see what Samantha did? Did you see the hell's going on? I can't believe I can't tell this person that Samantha did it. All that stuff. But
Yeah.
no,
This feels
I
very
appreciate
Stray Dogsy. This has like Stray Dogs crossover
it. There
potential.
you go.
I'm
You
gonna try
write
it.
it,
Feral. Maybe this
or
works. Maybe
you
this takes
write
place
it
in the world of Feral.
with
I don't know how that works.
with with Trish and Tony. You guys get together and do this all together.
That'd be amazing.
And do it, or there's at least some covers going on there. But no, I could have seen you actually do it. If it was funny, if this came out right around the same time as Stray Dogs was coming out, I could have seen you doing a variant for Stray Dogs at the same time. But
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But
I mean, it's still in the running. I hope I get to do a variant.
Feral, yeah, you could do a Feral, yeah, for sure. That's actually a phenomenal series, everybody. If you haven't read Feral, you do that too. Yeah,
please
absolutely.
read Feral if you don't.
Yes, exactly. You got plenty of time. There's nothing to read out there. So just read Beneath the Trees and Feral and Stray Dogs. There's not enough on the market. Yeah,
like there's so many good books out right now. It's nuts.
Well, that's what I appreciate with your books being easy to read. It's one of those things that I could fly through it, get what I wanted out of it, enjoy the experience, and be able to read the next thing. There's comics
still be able to read the rest on your pull list.
I'm like, I'll read 4 comics tonight, and I get through issue of the first comic, and I'm like, Jesus.
That was dense, and I need I need a breather.
I need a cigarette, like Monica.
Yeah, right.
I love seeing a cigarette in a duck's mouth. It's a funny looking. The duck's mouth.
I don't know why. I was like, is this gonna work? But I'm just going with it.
It works. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so I appreciate you coming on here and chatting with us. And July 9th today, go pick up Beneath the Tree, Where Nobody Sees, Rite of Spring #1. Second issue comes out in August, August, and then in September is the 3rd issue, and it's a 6-issue miniseries, so grab that. But again, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming out and chatting with us here on the podcast, and we'll have you back again in the future.
Oh man, major pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Patrick.
What?